Guys, this video was supposed to happen months ago. I literally was supposed to film this months ago. I filmed all the footage of me testing it. Everything was horrible. I got frustrated, but then I went back to it and I tested this item. This is the Joe Flowers designed Nebula by Artisan Cutlery. I didn't film the testing this time, but I put this through some hard use, and this has got to be probably the best purpose-built camp tool I've ever seen. Stay tuned to the end for a little bit of bonus footage. Let's turn this around and talk about this awesome tool from above. All right, guys, this is one of those things that's not typical for on the channel. And you guys know that I have gotten some stuff like the Work Tough stuff that I have been testing. This is more outdoors camp style stuff that I'm still big on. I still do some stuff. I just don't do it as often. This is the Nebula designed by Joe Flowers. And this thing is an incredible, just all around camp tool, because while it is pretty much like a camp hatchet, there's so many things you can do with this that you can't do with a regular camp hatchet. Camp hatchets are really broad. This thing is nice and thin, almost tomahawk style. It is one solid piece of steel. Now I'm going to tell you the steel. You guys can't really get upset. It's 5CR. And the nice thing about 5CR is it makes really good tools. It's not a very good blade steel for a knife, but in a application like this, it's pretty good because this edge was jacked up. And you can see it's pretty good now. I was able to do this with a file. You can see what the edge looked like when I came back, because I was pounding this into the soil. I was chopping roots and things up in the desert. I took it up on the desert into the mountains, and I was doing things that you typically would do. You would be using this for stuff like that. If you're chopping fire, I chopped some firewood. It's really sandy and rocky. There's stuff all in the wood up there. I chopped firewood here. You can see I batoned it through some stuff. It did really, really well. But the fact is, it's not just a chopping tool. If you look at how it's built, you can chop, but then you've got grip here where you can get up on this. You can do small detail tasks on this that you can't do with a field, like a camp hatchet. Let me show you why. I've got a camp hatchet specifically to show you. First of all, to compare it to a camp axe or camp hatchet, you can see how broad and thick this blade is. You're going to have problems doing some of this. This definitely got wet. This thing will definitely get through material, smaller material easily. You can use this, the edge on it, much more akin to the things you do with a knife. The other thing is, this is heavy, very, very heavy, which does aid if you're chopping and splitting wood. But this is much easier to carry in because it does multiple tasks. It just makes it a better all-around tool. So like I said, you can do a lot of things with this that you would do with a knife. You can get up on this. I did some kitchen tasks with this, and I did film it, but I deleted it. I cut up a little bit of onion with this. You can use this. It's thin enough that you can use this for some kitchen style tasks. It's not great, but you still can. The handles, you can cut all the way down here and get on this, and it's got enough weight forward that you can still do the tasks that you would do with that camp axe that I just showed you, even though that's heavier. But you're not going to wear yourself out as much with this because it's easier to swing. You've got some jimping here. You saw me doing that. You can get up on this. Like if you're doing, I'm sorry, this is going to happen a lot because this is a bigger item. You can do some feather sticking and things like that with this because it's more built for something like that. You can pinch grip it and get up on it and do some of those tasks. It's got a nice hammer back here. I broke some rocks with it. It did a really good job. Broke some rocks and things like that. And like I said, I batoned this through stuff, beating on the back of this with another log. I batoned through some wood, and it did a pretty good job because while it's not really broad for doing wood splitting, it's broad enough that as it comes down like a thicker outdoor style knife, it allows you to split that wood open, and then you've got this nice platform here that you can beat on. And then if you can see here, when I got far enough down in, I would beat on this to get it down in further. And typically by the time I got in about that far, I was able to just split the wood off. It did a really, really good job. The handles on it are in G10, and they're checkered, and they're done really, really well. You can take them off and clean under them if you happen to get it wet so you don't get any rust. 5CR is fairly rust resistant, so I don't think you're going to run into that problem. But overall use for, like, if I was going out day camping, this would be great. I could do a lot of tasks with this that then I could also do some knife tasks that if I only took this, like if I only took a camp hatchet, then I would have to have a knife to do some of those tasks. So this does fit the bill for kind of a multi-use item. And the fact as well, if you happen to be somebody that looks at stuff from a tactical standpoint, very tomahawk-esque. It is a very, it's got the hook down here so you can do the pulling and things that you would do with a typical tomahawk, but not as long or, you know, purpose-built single-use item like a combat tomahawk. Now, it comes with this really great sheath, which is a bonus. It's got a spot where you can put a, like if you wanted to, you could put a device on here, like a retention device, so that you could put a clip on here. I had this with a, what is it? Tech lock. I put a tech lock on this and carried it. It's got a retention strap on it here. These act like a weep hole so that you've got some moisture areas where if you get wet, it's not going to sit there in the water. And it is a really good retention sheath. It's built for this item, and you just basically get the bottom in there, push it through, and then you just wrap this around, and now your hatchet's locked in, and it's not just laying around, beating around in your pack sharp, which you're going to run into with most of like those camp axes, like that Cooligan's camp axe I showed you. It has got a lot of stuff going for it. Now, there's some negative stuff about it, and so we'll talk about that stuff in just a second. Flip side of the axe, flip side of the story this time, I guess. Yeah, there's a couple small things about it. It does an okay job with pretty much everything. I did notice that it doesn't split, like it doesn't split wood as easily as like that camp axe, the small one that I showed you, because it doesn't have as broad of a profile. Those are built to split small pieces of wood. This doesn't have as broad a profile, so you got to swing it a little bit harder because it doesn't have that. And additionally, you will find that the weight is pretty evenly distributed across this, where in a camp axe, it's purposely at the head to give you more impact. It's not as bad as some other stuff that I've tried to chop with. That basically, like, let me show you what I'm talking about. What I was referring to is this KATSU KNIVES folding axe. The weight on this is just pretty even, and you got to use a lot more wrist muscle than you did on this. But this, you still have to use a lot more wrist and forearm muscle than you would with an actual purpose-built camp axe because of the weight distribution. So it's not horrible, but it just doesn't have as much weight forward. Next thing, the hammer side of this, and I understand because it's milled out of one solid piece. If you made this wider, it would be a little bit easier to use for striking purposes, like driving tent stakes and stuff, which is something I did do with it. It works, but you're hitting on a much narrower surface than you would on a broader axe head, or you know what I'm saying, like a camp hatchet, broader head. You have a wider striking surface. But because it is milled out of a single piece, the cost of the waste would just be prohibitive. I do understand that. I would have liked to seen, this is a different animal here. I would have liked to have seen on this one, only on this one, probably a deep cut flathead for these, or maybe a big beefy Phillips for these screws, because that T8, can you see, that's going to get all mangled up. It's going to get full of stuff. This really got put through the business. And if I needed to take these off, I would be afraid that stuff would get down in here, or that I would just ruin these and just get them scratched to the point where you really can't get a bit in as easily. So something like this, maybe some big fat Phillips heads, or locked on one side and then a big fat Phillips head, or a much larger Torx bit, like a T15-ish, like a big fat one, like some knife companies used to use on their pivots. Next thing, this jimping, it's pretty much worthless, really, to tell you the truth. Back here, it's not as bad because the handles come up into it, but right here, that needed to be a little bit more aggressive. Can you see how soft and rounded over those are? It still is okay because, like, if you got big hands like me, you're still back on the actual handle. But I would have liked to have seen the jimping here be a little bit sharper and have jimping on both sides. That would be something that I would say I would want. I would want jimping on both sides of this. Maybe jimping the entire length down to here. Other than that, I really can't think of any. I would have not put the hole in it. That would be the last thing. I wouldn't have put the hole in it because it would give you a little bit more weight towards the front. But overall, as far as like a just purpose-built multi-use camp tool. It's amazing. It's a yup all day. I love this thing. Joe really nailed it with this design. Steel choice was really good. Like I said, you can still sharpen it with a file out in the woods if you want. I didn't take a file with me, but I did sharpen it back here at the house. Everything about this, and it's got a nice large lanyard hole for something like this, is a beautiful thing, to quote Nick Shabazz. It's a beautiful thing. So let's turn this around, do some final thoughts. After you guys watch some footage, a little bonus footage that I shot for the first video of this that was supposed to happen.
Hey man, what you doing?
Not much, just scripting a video. Why?
No reason. Hey, you got a hatchet?
Shit. Yeah, it's right over there. It's right over there. You should be, yeah, right there. Yeah, grab it.
Oh, over here? Cool. Thanks, man. I'll be back. Hey, man. Are you having a party or something?
Party? No, why?
Well, you know that guy with the cowboy hat?
Yeah.
Well, that's why I asked you for the hatchet. He said he needed it to cut up the wood for the bonfire.
Well, would you look at that? My wife loved that coffee table.
Boy, she can enjoy it one last time when we light this puppy off. Thanks for the use of the hatchet, by the way. That's a nice hatchet.
Yeah, artisan did a pretty good job with it.
There you go, guys. I honestly think this is probably one of the best designed camp tools ever. The fact it comes with a sheath and you can put a clip on it if you want to carry it on your belt. This thing is great. I'm really, really impressed with it. If you can get one of these, I absolutely recommend it because it does a lot of the tasks that you would carry a typical hatchet with or for, but it does a lot of those tasks better. And it does other tasks you can't do with that. So not to make this take any longer, I really do love this thing. It's going to stay here forever. I've beat the crap out of it. I'm really impressed with it. So guys, you know what to do. Sponsors are down below. Affiliates are down below. All those things support the channel. I've got coupon codes at Beyond EDC, 40% off at Beyond EDC, 10% off at Fair and Forged Knife Works, 10% at Bushcraft Blades, 10% at KATSU Knives. It's Crazy Sharp, all one word, all lowercase. There's a membership down below. I do giveaways, exclusive content, premium sharpening tutorial series, and there's a public Discord down there. Check all that stuff out. Please use my Amazon store. Take it, pin it to your browser. Use it for any shopping you're going to do. Guys, that's it on this one. I love you all. Keep it clean in the comments section. If it's your birthday, happy birthday, and I'll see you in the next video.